Well, welcome. This is the silly season, the season where people get up and volunteer to help our children, our residents, and everybody else associated with Milford. So we start off with our hats being off to every candidate, whether they end up being elected or not, getting our thanks. So tonight we're going to talk about, and I know everybody thinks the selectmen's race is the most critical, but the race for setting policy on taking care of our kids, to me, is one of the most important races where every parent should be very, very knowledgeable about each of the candidates, what they stand for, and then get out and vote for the one they feel the best about. So tonight, we're going to start with an introduction.
Good evening, Al. My name is Mike Visconti, and I am running for one of the two available seats on the school committee in April.
So Mike, I start off every show in the political review for candidates with a fundamental question. I'm a parent in Milford, or I'm a resident of Milford. Why should I vote for you for school committee?
I want people to think that they can vote for me for a number of reasons. First of all, I consider myself to be well-educated, both formally and on the street, if you will. I have, and this comes up on every school committee race since the beginning of time. I have no children and no relatives that I know of in the system. So every one of my votes and every position that I take on the school committee, if I am elected, will be completely objective and unbiased. I have no hidden agenda to get on the school committee to either propose or vote or push to vote for any issue that may benefit any of my family members or relatives that might be in the system, because I have none in the system. So all of my votes will be objective, logical, and cast after a thorough understanding of the issue. I believe that I am a very objective voter. I am not subjective. I have all the facts before me before I cast a vote. I've been doing that for a long time now. I am also an expediter. Recently, in the past year or so, the school committee has been heavily criticized for taking a somewhat lackluster approach to establishing a definite direction they were going to go in or not going to go in with respect to an IT director. Now, this had an adverse effect on our selectmen's ability to decide in which direction they wanted to go. They had to know, look, are we going to go with a town-wide IT director or department, or are we going to separate the school from the town? Which, by the way, I believe the school should be separate from the town. The school has completely different IT needs than the town does, and I believe that we'll be far better off if we separate those two. Now, I'm not in favor of big government and hiring many people, which some people might say, well, if we split it, then we're going to have to hire more people. I believe that we can hire each side, town side and school side, can hire one, if they don't already have them in place, one IT director, and everything else can be outsourced. It's a very efficient way to run things. There are many benefits. There are less costs involved. We have no more town employees that we have to increase our benefit budget for. We have no long-term, for the life of that employee, benefits after they retire. If you outsource it, you hire a consultant to come in when you have an issue that you need to be addressed. When it's done, thank you very much, goodbye. Here's your pay, here's some money for you. Now get out. We'll call you when we need you. That's it. End of story. Problem solved. The money flow stops there, and it's a much better way to do business than to build up departments on both ends. save more importantly, save the taxpayers a ton of money. And that's part of why we're here. And being an expediter, I will, if I am elected to the school committee, I will help to see to it that the school committee is never again criticized for either taking a lackluster approach to something or foot dragging. I have been an expediter all my life. I spent most of my career expediting things, getting things done, no excuses. And I hope that the voters of Milford will understand that I am able to do that and that they will cast their vote, one of their votes for me in April.
Now, one thing, you mentioned that you don't have any family, any children, but it's not like you're not a Milford person, right? I mean, you.
Well, I am not a Milford person, but not having children or family in the system does not mean that I don't care about the system.
Right.
I will act in a way that I feel will benefit all of the students in the system and all of the staff and management in the system.
And you've been involved in Milford, volunteering for Milford government for a long time.
I have been volunteering, well, I've been a town meeting member for 35 plus years.
Right.
I served on the Milford Zoning Board of Appeals for 20 years. And I have, although not been appointed, I have, especially in recent times, volunteered for no fewer than 5 either permanent or ad hoc committees in the town. I want to volunteer. I feel that I have something to offer. I know that I have something to offer the town, and I feel that I can be objective in my decision-making.
But Michael, I'll take objection that you're not a Milford person. You've been here for 35 years helping the town meeting. I mean, I joke with my daughter, saying she's finally a true Milfordian. 4th generation Milford, and she lives within 2 miles of her mother. But you take the kidding aside, you've given over 3 decades of help to the town. If that doesn't make you a Milford person, I don't know what does.
Well, there are many people who have given a lot of time to helping this town move ahead and stay above board. And those people should be recognized for having done so. A lot of those people stay low-key. They're not you don't see their names in the paper or hear their names on the radio every day, but they are there and they are working hard.
And I'll tip my hat to anybody who's in Milford helping our kids, our residents, before I'll tip my hat to somebody who was born in Milford and never did a thing. So, you know, again, all of you candidates, I applaud, because you're standing up saying, put me in, I want to help.
I want to help. I believe I can help. I know I can help. And I don't want to sound arrogant, but I know I can help. I've seen how the town operates. I know areas where I think I can be of value to the town, and that's what I would like to do.
Now, this year, we're a little worried because the state is talking about some pretty big deficits, and our governor is saying he may have to cut local aid. Local aid provides for the majority of the school budget. Or, I'm sorry, Milford aid, Milford tax dollars provides for a majority of the school budget. The Massachusetts local aid provides for 47%. If that's cut, and we don't raise taxes to make up for it, what programs in your mind, if you got to choose, would you look at scaling back?
I feel that one of the things that we need to do, and that I would push for, is to go back to basics, if you will. And I call them, back in the day, they were called the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, and I'll include the sciences in that too, but we need to enhance those programs. Anything other than those programs, as far as I'm concerned, is a candidate for the chopping block. If we teach our children to be proficient in reading, writing, and math and sciences, they will easily flow into career opportunities that are either college degree required or non-college degree required career opportunities. You need to be able to be proficient in reading and writing and math to be successful in most career opportunities these days. It's very competitive. But that's what we need to key on. Anything else, as I said, is a candidate for cutting.
Now, when you talk about cutting, one of the things that's gathered a lot of attention is the fact that the school choice program has been running large deficits. Any comments on what we could do to change it?
I do. School choice needs to be revived, if you will, in the respect that we have been losing more students than we have been taking in terms of our monetary aspect of it. We need to find out why the students are leaving the Milford system. There's got to be a reason. Now, I have been communicating with Mr. Formica from the Weston school system. We have been discussing what Weston has. Now, Weston is, by the way, rated. The Weston Weston High School is rated. I believe. Don't quote me on this exactly. I believe they're number 6 in the state.
Well, there's certainly top 10.
Way into the top 10. I believe, believe it or not, I believe number 1 is Lexington. Now, that rating system is published and conducted by the niche organization, which is the premier school rating system in the country. They rate schools all over the country. They have a very complicated methodology that they use to rate these schools. The high schools, as I said, Weston, I believe they're number 6, certainly in the top 10. They, few years back, were in the same situation where a lot of students were leaving their system. They developed, if I give this away, then fine, but I hope it helps. If I don't get to be involved in it, then at least maybe someone will hear it and it might help. They put out what I refer to as an exit interview, if you will, but it's more commonly referred to as a survey. Now, it's completely anonymous, so if, Al, you decide to send one of your children to another system, they would ask you to fill out this survey, and it involves a myriad of questions. It can be done online, and then the school system takes that feedback, analyzes it, and says, oh, well, we have, based on these surveys, here's where we need to enhance our programs to keep, if we want to keep these students here. And that, I believe, that is one of the things that I would ask to be done. And part of, I'm not going to go through this. This is the survey. Questions. It's a hard copy, but it's an online survey conducted by the Weston school system. Now, we all know our superintendent is going to our.
He's school choicing the Weston.
He's school. Thank you. Which brings up another issue. I was not in favor. Well, I shouldn't say I was not in favor. I was disappointed that the Milford School Committee did not go out on the street to see what was out there for superintendents before they hired from within. Now, I do not know the new superintendent. I am not saying that he should not have got the position. What I'm saying is, if it ended up that he got the position, all well and good. But I believe the school committee owed it to the public, they owed it to the students, and they owed it, most importantly, to themselves, to go out on the street to at least see what was out there. This is no better evidenced by the fact that, once again, Weston, one of the top schools in the state, they had several people who could have slid right into the superintendent's position already in their system. As a matter of fact, there's an interim superintendent over there who's been there for 6 months from their system, who's been doing a fine job carrying on flawlessly and like there was no change at all. That person could have easily slid into the superintendent's permanent position. However, Weston recognized the value in going out on the street to see what was out there. And we all know the outcome of that.
Now, why do you think the school committee chose the path they went in?
I do not know. Certainly, and I'm not saying this is the reason they did, but if I had to think of reasons why, it might have been the easiest path to go in. There is some, obviously some work and some time spent in going out on the street, interviews, that type of thing, but we're doing this for the kids, for the system. To me, that would have been time well spent. Unless there's something that I don't know about that prevented them from doing that, I would have pushed to have the position advertised to see what was out there, just like Weston did, the top school, one of the top schools in the state. By the way, I spoke of Weston being number 6. In that ranking system, Milford High is number 131, did not even make the top 100, which does not speak well of the system.
It's right in the middle third of the 300.
Did not, well, there's more, there were more than just the 351 communities, because there were multiple high schools in
Oh,
some
okay,
of the
it's high
communities.
schools. I thought you meant
Well,
districts.
in the districts, now, you want to talk about districts, in the districts, once again, Weston, I think was number 2. Milford, well, we fared a little bit better as far as the district was concerned, and we ranked 91. So we did make the top 100, but still, far below Hopkinton, Medway, Millis.
Why?
Well, I don't know why. Why would the Medway, Millis, Franklin, Nipmuc, Blackstone Valley, Tech, why would those schools have a better ranking than Milford High? We need to find out why, and we need to get Milford's ranking up there, not back up, but up to where it should be. Certainly in the top 100, but more importantly, they should be in the top 10. They should be knocking on Weston's door for their position.
Now, Mike, question always comes out. Milford's ratings, when we do standard test scores, are always much lower than a lot of the communities around when you take the overall aggregate.
Well, I'm a firm believer in standardized testing. And that while that is not the primary factor in the rating system, in the rating methodology that this company uses, it does play into it. But the methodology is very, very complex that they use. So it takes a lot of things into consideration. But let's look at the standardized testing in the Milford schools. This year, as in other years, the College Board sets a benchmark for the SATs, a score, by which they feel a student is ready for college or career opportunities. That benchmark is, I believe, once again, I hate to spit out numbers that I'm not certain of, but I believe, if my research is correct, I believe that benchmark is around 1550 for a score on the College Board. The max is...
Well, regardless,
but whatever it is...
regardless of the number of the
Whatever it
new
is.
SAT, the old SAT
Right.
numbers.
Whatever it is, Milford, this past year, far below the benchmark. On the contrary, Franklin High School murdered the benchmark. Medway slayed the benchmark. Millis stomped on it. Why are these schools putting out students that are far exceeding Milford students in terms of the standardized
Are
testing,
they?
which colleges look at. But not only that, but to me, that means that we should be teaching our students to be more proficient in getting back to what I said before, reading, writing, and math.
But now, let me ask you, because I remember when my daughter hit the 8th grade, Tommy Davern was running Middle School East. And we were on the advisory committee. And I remember the first meeting, I said, you know, Tommy, why do your scores suck? And he looked at me, he says, what do you mean? I said, you're the worst in the area. He says, that's because you're ignorant. I said, good. If I'm ignorant, educate me. Why are all the schools around us showing better test scores? And I remember him looking at me saying, because you haven't researched our results. If you look at our kids, and he took it, I really loved him because he took such a pride in the product he put out, Educated Kids. He said, Middle School East has a bimodal distribution. Our top kids do as well as every kid in the area. But when you take that Gaussian curve and you add in the immigrant population and you average it together, yeah, our averages look a lot worse. But the top kids in Milford do as well as the top kids everywhere else. Fact, fiction?
We cannot look at the extremes, as far as I'm concerned, and make judgments. We need to look at averages, if you will. And to that point, and to Tommy's point, or Mr. Davern's point, if you will, as far as the SATs are concerned, not all of the students take the SATs. Most of, if not all of the immigrants, if you will, don't go.
No, but these were MCAS scores that they were judged.
Well, they don't go near the SATs. So these are the top kids, supposedly top kids in the school, taking the SATs that fall far short of all our surrounding schools. We need to do something to improve that. We need to make our children more proficient in the 3 R's. And I'll include science in that too.
Well, no, I understand.
I don't want to leave you out of it.
No, please. You know, I remember him showing me data, and maybe it's changed and I've missed it, that the top kids in Milford did as well, you know, as anywhere. And candidly, to me, the ultimate judge was when my 2 daughters wanted to go to college, and they got into every college they applied to. Kind of told me that the colleges, and they weren't schleppy colleges, valued a Milford education. I'm not saying it can't be better. I just want to understand the data, because question I'll ask, how do you think the immigrant population affects our school system?
We cannot forever continue to make excuses for not putting out a knowledgeable student because of the immigrants. Quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing that, with all due respect, as a potential excuse for not putting out a quality student that can compete with the students in our surrounding towns.
And I'll agree with you, because thank God when I came here, nobody told me that we were from the bad side of town, or that not speaking English in my home was a bad thing. We just got put in the school and told, you're just like everybody else, go. And we did. But, you know, a lot of the people that leave Milford cite the fact that the diversity, I mean, some come to Milford for diversity, but too many on those surveys cite the fact that they don't believe that the diversity doesn't hurt the programs. Fact or fiction in your mind?
Well, it's a good point. I believe that our children should be exposed to as many different elements as early as possible. So when they go out into the world, they don't experience culture shock, if you will. I believe it's a benefit to be involved with and sit side by side with other children from other cultures, if you will. We cannot keep using that as an excuse.
If you look at what's facing Milford, if you were to be asked, what do you think the 3 biggest challenges in the school system is? what comes to your mind?
Well, a couple of things we already discussed. Certainly, we need to get that school choice thing straightened out. We need to find out why they're leaving. And this gentleman I have been communicating with, and who handled the Weston problem, has offered to me to help with that situation. He feels the survey, the survey sent out or online to parents benefited Weston more than anything else in straightening out their issue with school choice.
I'm told when we had the present superintendent and the incoming superintendent, we asked them, how do you try and get a handle around this? They say they do a survey. Are we just not listening to the results? Are we not asking the right questions? How is it that you have a survey here from Weston?
I do.
That you say they're telling you helped them turn around their school choice. We have a survey. Are we not using the same questions?
I don't know. I have not seen, if there is a survey, I have not seen it. I am not privy to that. If there is a survey, and I would be surprised if there is a survey, but if you say there is,
you know,
then I'll take your
again,
word for
I
it.
trust when the superintendent and incoming superintendent said they are doing a survey, because obviously it's a big concern to the FinCom from a pure dollars and cents point of view that we're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, 100, 200 grand a year out of our budget because people are opting out of the Milford school system. So we wanted to know, what are you doing about it? How are you even learning what the issues are?
Yeah, we need to find that out. I need to look more deeply into what is being done, and hopefully that if I am elected to the school committee, that is one of the things that I can research a little bit more thoroughly. This Weston survey is pretty complex, and the key is too that it is completely anonymous. So when you send your child to another system, Al, no one's going to know why you did it.
Right.
They're going to know that a person did it because of this, but they're going to not going to know that it was you that did it.
Well, and it
But
really doesn't
why-
matter why I did it. It more matters why, when you say $160,000, that's like incrementally 16, 18 extra kids leaving Milford.
Yeah. When if I had a child, now I did have a child in the system years ago, and I didn't think twice about sending him to keeping him in the Milford system.
Sure.
I got a good education in Milford. Of course, that was a few years back. And then he got a good education. But it's always been in the back of my mind, okay? Did he fare well because of the Milford system, or did he fare well because of his natural inherent ability that he inherited from
Sure.
you know who? That's not to disparage the school system in any way, but it's always in the back of my mind. You know, is it only the students that have the natural ability that are you know getting these high scores? I don't know. But we need to find out. If I had a child now going into the system, into high school, and I picked up these rating systems here, these rankings, and I see, gee, Hopkinton, as I said before, murdered the benchmark. Medway, Franklin, Nipmuc, and I don't say that
No, I understand.
disparagingly, but Nipmuc, I would think twice. I would say, wait a minute. Why are these students, you know, killing the SATs and murdering the benchmark, and the Milford students aren't even coming close to the benchmark? I may think twice now about sending.
Well, you know, and again, I wonder if we still have that bimodal distribution where, you know, a large segment of our kids do as well as everybody, and yet you have, I mean, The English language learners, you've got kids coming in who've never had any formal education or can't speak English at all, and they're rolling into the high school. What would you do that's different from what we do today?
You know, as I'm looking through this, of interest might be some of the rankings within the system that were published. Milford's rankings. Academics, this is the high school now, not the district. Academics, we got an A-, not bad. Administration and policies, we got an A-.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Educational outcomes, B+. Extracurriculars, B. Here's a good one. Food, got an A.
God bless Carla.
Health and safety, a B+. I mean, some of these are, you know, incidental,
So, I
but
mean,
they all factor into.
But you sit there and say, on your rankings, I'm looking at your list, the worst we did was a B, and that's culture and diversity.
Yeah, well, student culture and diversity, we got a B. And what was the worst on these ratings
So you
here?
sit there and say, okay, I mean, you can argue we should get an A, not an A-. I want an A+,
Well,
but
because that is what these other schools got. Nothing shy of an A-. And that's why they are ranked, you know, in the top 25 or 10, or even top 100, when Milford High is
Middle of the pack.
131, didn't make the top 100. That to me is unacceptable.
So challenge number one, you think, is the school choice. What is the second biggest challenge that you think you'd face on the school committee? Can you think of a second or third?
Well, I mean, getting our standardized scores up certainly is a challenge, and that is enhancing and adding to. If we're going to add programs, then we need to add. I hate to be redundant and sound like a broken record. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're back
The
to reading,
3 Rs.
writing, and
The
arithmetic.
3 Rs.
3 Rs.
If you can become proficient in those, then you can slide into almost any career opportunity or college opportunity that's out there with far greater ease than someone who is not proficient in those.
Well, I mean, you know, you look and a lot is being talked about in the science and engineering, but at the end of the day, reading, writing, and arithmetic, you know, when you look at basic math skills, you look at basic communication skills, that's the foundation of everything else. My science knowledge is based on the logical progression that I learned in math.
If you can read, write, and add 2 and 2, then you can learn on your own.
That's the foundation of the house. Without a good foundation, you're not going to build a good house.
But according to these scores, the students coming out of Milford High are not on the same level as the students coming out of Hopkinton, Medway, Millis,
And that's
Franklin.
amazing to me. And I do want to do some more checking, because I know, and it was many years ago, when I challenged Tommy, he showed me the data. And I felt very good about the opportunities my children would have in Milford. Any other challenges you see coming our way?
Well, this may be solved before the election, I don't know, but this IT thing has to be straightened out. And I believe that the school committee now is pretty close to getting that problem solved, although I can't swear to that.
What do you believe is the core issue with IT in the school system?
Somebody needs to be in charge, take charge, and make sure that everything is being done correctly, on time. You know, if it's, my philosophy with respect to anything, if it's not perfect, then it's wrong. Now, if you proceed on that premise, then you know everything is not going to be perfect.
Right.
But if you strive for that, then it's going to come out
Just
pretty
because you
da-
get an
pretty
A
darn-
doesn't mean you don't strive for an A+.
you know it's going to come out pretty darn good.
So now, when you start looking overall, and you say, we've got a new school coming online. We've just invested $34 million of Milford money, $61 million of total money in the Woodland School. Is that not a challenge to integrate that school online?
From what I understand, the technology is already been incorporated into that new school. So it should be relatively easy
Okay.
to bring that on.
So-
And, I'm sorry to interrupt. While we're speaking here, I just looked at this here. As far as the high school rankings, a few more. Hopkinton, number 14, okay? I think I'll send my kid there. Westboro, number 23. He may go there. Franklin, 50, only 50. Marlboro, 61. These are just a few of the others that are Holliston, right down the street, a short trip. Holliston is 72, still broke the top 100. Nipmuc is 82, Millis 88, and wait, there's Milford, 131, you know.
Okay. But let's get back to your IT. For years, we were told we haven't invested in IT. Yet, last year, we invested a sizable amount. And this year, we budgeted $300,000, let's call it, for hardware. And that's going to be trebled because it's being submitted as an E-rate. So we should get $900,000 worth of hardware, and hopefully it won't cost that much, but are we done throwing money at the problem?
Well, no, you probably saw the report that was done, basically, of the inspections of the equipment, the hardware, you know, stuffed in cluttered closets with all kinds of cleaning supplies and all
Yes.
other junk piled on top of the equipment. No I mean, just a myriad of problems. We need somebody, and I don't mean a Mr. Fix-It, okay? I mean a director, if you will, to make sure that that does not happen. This town, not specifically the school department, but this town has a nasty habit of building architectural monuments and then not doing a thing to them until, oh, wait a minute, we need to build another architectural monument because that one's fallen apart. Cannot continue like that. Maintenance, we need to maintain. This Woodland School, we need to make sure that school is maintained. The old Woodland School, what a disaster. And I'm not here to
Yeah, and isn't it
rag on.
ironic that years ago, we had this big movement in town to break up the neighborhood schools because Woodland was so much better and so far ahead of every other school, and now it's being called the worst dump of all three. Is it reactionary? I mean, I'm confused right now because this year in IT in the town will put in close to $500,000 total investment. How much more? I mean, if we really come up with $600,000 to $900,000 of hardware, I would hope the hardware is taken care of because we just put in over $100,000 to build a fiber loop, not build, but rent Comcast's fiber loop.
And I believe the bandwidth up there has been taken care of so that we're up to snuff now, from what I understand. I don't know that.
The bandwidth
Firsthand,
is there. The problem was we still had, when Paul Revere put in the routers, they were state of the art. But now you got this great big fiber pipe and this little tiny bandwidth. So this year's E-rate submission is supposed to take care of all of that and bring the hardware up to the bandwidth of the loop. So come whenever they install it, we should be up and running at every school.
You see, I am guilty of that myself. My son, when he comes home, says to me, when are you gonna get rid of this dinosaur? Because my computer is 2 years old. Well, you know, it worked, for my purposes, it works fine. For his purposes, it's like a tortoise crawling across the floor. Well, I'm sorry, but this is what we have to work with here, and it's fine for my purposes. So, you know, I can't see, I am not sharp enough in that department to see that, oh, that downloaded, you know,
Sure.
a millisecond quicker than if I had a new computer today. And I don't care. I don't, for myself, I don't care. Now, I know the big picture, yes, that's important, and that needs to be taken care of. But we have to be careful because, as you know, hardware, you know, as the year goes by, you know, that's,
all
that's
obsolete.
junk. There was a time when, maybe not your children, but mine would get hand-me-downs, as I call them, okay? Okay, I'm done with this, here, you can have it. Now, I get hand-me-ups from my son, because he buys a phone, and, you know, 2 months later, it's junk. Oh, here, Dad, you can have it. Well, gee, this thing is like...
It's still
to
10
me-
times better than what
to
I
me,
had.
State of the art, you know? So, you know, we have to be careful with technology, because if we're not careful, we'll be left behind. But if we're not careful, it'll cost us millions and millions of dollars to keep up with it. So we have to be very strategic in how we go about with IT, hardware, and the like.
From a strategic point of view, Middle School East is going to come offline next fall. Any thoughts on Middle School East?
My understanding is that it looks like the highest and best use might be for either office space, for lease, or office space to annex the town hall maybe. Now, I believe that's where that committee is leaning towards.
Well,
But I don't want to speak for them.
obviously, you know,
I shut that off, I'm very sorry.
No
I
problem.
can't believe it.
obviously, the nirvana for us, you know, heaven, would be to find somebody who's willing to take Middle School East, spend the money to bring it up to code, and then pay taxes on it. Problem is, there's no parking. You know, it's right in the middle of town. So saying that we're going to turn it all into retail would be difficult. I think you're right that we need space for the town hall. And Milford High School has not had any expansion of space. We've never expanded the high school since '74 when we brought it online. So
I have worked in many towns where, when I've gone to the town hall, I'm told that, no, that office is in the annex. And, well, okay, where is the annex? Well, if you go a mile this way, take a left, so
right.
if we turned the middle school east into an annex, if it was possible, with town hall, some of the town hall offices there, you could say to somebody who did what I used to do, it's right across the street.
Go across the
Just walk
street.
across the street.
Yep.
I mean, to me, if that's a legitimate use for that building, then there is no better spot in the town than the middle school east for an annex.
Now, when we look at Milford High, you brought up the extracurricular activities. I mean, we always thought our sports programs and extracurriculars were a very strong plus. Is that what the data's saying?
Well, I don't have the results of that data, okay? But I will tell you this. We cannot lose sight of the reason that we go to school, and that is for academics. Now, the extracurriculars certainly are fine, and I am not saying that we should eliminate extracurriculars, because I don't think we should. But we cannot lose sight of the fact that the main reason for going to school is academics, and that's what we have to key on.
But now, how do you bring about change that way? I mean, your life, if you're on the school committee, becomes the life of 4. You have to have you and 3 others agreeing to make a change, because you need 4 votes out of 7 to implement change. So,
Yeah, I can only say what I think if I'm elected to that, on that committee, if I'm elected. I am not shy about offering my opinion, and I am always willing to listen to somebody else's opinion. Once I offer my opinion and listen to everybody else, then and only then will I draw a conclusion.
so now you've been involved in a lot of Milford government, almost 4 decades worth of involvement. Does that help you when you go to the school committee?
Well, I think it does, but beyond that, I've been working for the last 35, 40 years with committees other than town committees. When I got out of school, I did work for a company. I then went to another company until I realized that, wait a minute, I don't want to be jumping from company to company. I'm going to go out on my own, be self-employed. Thank you very much. Well, I had no idea what I was getting into, but that's what I did. So for the last 38 or 39 years, I have been self-employed. And I still do some work for some of the companies and banks that I used to work for when I was actively working, but I've cut back significantly. So, which brings up another point. I have a lot of time to offer and commit to the position of school committee. When I commit to something, I commit to it. And there's nothing that gets in my way. And I've said this before, and I've said it to you before. When I was on the Zoning Board of Appeals for 20 years, for 19 of those years, I did not miss one meeting. I had a perfect attendance record. It took me having to laying flat on my back at Mass General Hospital with all kinds of tubes and connections into me to make me miss my first meeting on the zoning board. And when I regained consciousness briefly to say a few words, the few words I said were, I got to get to that meeting. And then I don't remember, then I was back out again. After weeks at Mass General and months of therapy, I was able to return to my position with the zoning board. And from that point on, until I got off the zoning board, I did not miss one other meeting. So other than, I think it was, I want to say 3 or 4, maybe 5 meetings in 20 years that I missed. So when I commit to something, I don't just say, look, I want to volunteer for this, and then say, oh, well, I was on that committee. And if you don't show up, I don't care how good you are. If you don't show up for the meeting, you're no good.
Now, you've been vocal, or at least clear, about your feelings on how we negotiate employee contracts. As the budgets keep getting tighter, what would your recommendations be?
I am not opposed to anybody making a fair wage. But I believe that there comes a point in time when you have to say enough is enough. Now, if, whether it be the school department or any other department, if you want to insist on these, and I'll call them extravagant pay increases, fine, but you have to understand that by doing so, you may be signing the pink slip of some of your colleagues, because we do not have enough money to handle that kind of pay increase. Now, you know, look at the private. When the private sector gets to a point where they say, wait a minute, we need to find some areas to save some money, they don't say, well, let's make an inferior product. Let's use cheaper parts in our machine over here. They don't say that. They say, wait a minute, we're going to have to downsize some of our personnel. That means Everybody else is gonna have to work a little bit harder, and we're gonna put the same quality parts in that machine and put out the same quality product. Now, I'm not suggesting that people lose their jobs, so please don't take this the wrong way. What I'm saying is that we need to be cognizant of the fact that the days of the extravagant, pay increases are gone. Now, they may come back another day, but for now, they're gone. When you have,
But what do you consider extravagant?
well, if we look at it in terms of percentages, our poor senior citizens out there, who, a lot of whom made this town what it is today,
COLAs was 0%.
received a huge pay increase on their Social Security check last year to the tune of, I believe it was, wait a minute now, it's coming to me, 0.0, that's
Yeah.
what it was.
I was going to say, last year my mother got nothing.
Yeah, so if we put it in perspective, that means a 2% raise that anybody would receive is what? Help me out with the numbers here.
Well, anything over 0.
200% higher than our poor senior citizens. To me, that qualifies as extravagant. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but, and once again, I want to see people get paid a fair wage. I want to see people get paid what they're worth. But we need to understand that we need to be fair about it. And you can't ask seniors who got 0% raise and are making a huge, in some cases, as much as, maybe $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Huge money, right?
$1,300 to $1,700
Yeah.
a month total.
Huge money. How can you ask them to fund 2% raises for people who are making, and I'm not talking about, I'm kind of, in excess of 100 grand a year. How can you ask them to do that? I'm talking about not just school department, I'm talking about across the board here. I can't ask them to do that. I won't ask them to do that.
But how do you tell the school teachers that their contract can't be what it's always been? Are you going to be the one that stands up to your neighbors and friends and says, you're not going to get a 2% raise this year?
No. What I'm going to say is, look, we'll give you, and I don't want to be sarcastic here, as I said before, I'll give you as much money as you want, but keep in mind that don't have enough for everybody. So someone is going to have to drop off the bottom here so that your pay increase can be satisfied. So keep that in mind when you're negotiating, and be fair about it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting that anybody, not get paid a fair wage. I know that our school department people, whether they be teachers or staff, auxiliary staff personnel, I know they work hard, and I want to see them get paid a fair wage. They are our future to the extent that they are teaching our children. And we need to take care of the teachers and make sure.
And years ago, I remember when we went to the union and said, we don't have any money. The teachers gave up their raises that year. They took a 0. And that was because, at the end of the day, there was no extra money. That was the only money we had. Teachers in surrounding communities delayed their raise, which I was confused, because if I can't afford to pay you your raise this year, how can I afford to pay you double at the end of the year? So people will argue that the school teachers have given up when needed.
When needed. The question of when is when needed. We could argue that point for
Till the cows come home.
till
It
the cows
depends
come home.
on
Thank you.
what side of the fence you're on
Yeah.
that
Whose
one.
need? My need or your need? Yeah, I don't know.
And we have certain programs that have come under criticism, that we do too much for the special needs programs, that we're attracting kids from other towns because Milford does a lot for special needs.
That may be, we may be
Fact or
attracting
fiction
kids.
in your mind?
We may be attracting kids from other towns because of our special needs programs. But I think the special needs programs are necessary, and it's a good feeling to have a good program in our system. Funding for it is another whole situation. The funding for it has to come from somewhere, and if we have to, and it has to come, as far as I'm concerned, it has to come from within the budget, the existing budget. So now we're going to have to say, okay, we're going to have to take a little bit from this line item and a little bit from that line item, and because we want it for special needs, and that's fine. So now instead of you getting $100, you're going to get 99, and figure out how to make it work
Right.
with $1 less.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, I've always taken the position that if the worst thing that happens while I'm taking care of our kids is I benefit some kids from outside of Milford, that doesn't seem too bad to me. You know, it seems like a good feeling to take care of our kids and have a little extra, you know, to take care of other kids in the area. Well, we're coming down to the end, and I got a question. I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
Well, to summarize, I believe that I will do a good job for the people of the town, for the children of the town, and for the administration and for the staff of the school system. I am a dedicated person. I am an intelligent person, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I am an intelligent person. I am well educated. I'm a very objective person. I have no ulterior motive for running for the school committee other than I want to serve the town as I have wanted to for the last 40 years. I believe I will do a good job. I know I will do a good job. I will try to, I will work as hard as I can to make sure that everybody is treated fairly. Now, by fairly, it might not that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be treated the way you want to be treated, but I will treat you fairly. I will not lie to you. If you ask me a question, I will tell you the truth. I will tell you exactly where I stand on every point, on every issue.
Thank you.
And I am also very trustworthy, and as such, I would appreciate it if the citizens of Milford would cast one of their 2 votes for me.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you
First
for
for
having me.
coming here, but more importantly, for standing up and being willing to help. And as always, I've always said I'll never ask you to vote for any specific person, but I'll beg you to become educated. Get to know the candidates that are going for the 2 school committee positions. They influence how our children are educated, and they get 6 hours, 7 hours a day with them. We're lucky to get a couple when it comes down to the high school level. And as always, may tomorrow be a better day than today. May God bless, and thank you to our 6 loyal viewers for watching. Good night.